Hello, I'm Israel Ekanem. I'm the artist and innovator resident at the Halifax Public Libraries, and over the next series of videos, I'll teach you how to make a podcast. Like I did in the last couple of videos, talk about story because I believe it is the foundation we have to build on. If you haven't checked it out, you can go check out those videos. But just to touch on it, stories is a connected series of events, and you can tell it whether by video, pictures, speech, music, dancing. It's a great form of communication, and it has structure. It is how we take elements of the story, which are, the protagonist, the antagonist, inciting incidents, and the rest, which you can see in the other videos. And then you kind of put it together with the plot, which is, this is what happens in the story. And last video, I talked about the 3-act structure. I love the 3-act structure. It's really simple. It goes beginning, middle, end. But I also said I'll share some other structures. Some other structures are the hero's journey. That's like, it's used by a lot of people, especially when they're writing feature-length scripts. Dan Hammond's story circle, Save the Cat beat sheets, which I actually love. And then, of course, my favorite, the 3-act structure, the 7-point story structure, which honestly, it's kind of like the 3-act structure. There's Freytag's pyramid and there's the feature and curve, but you don't need to, it's all jargon. All you need to focus on, I have a story, this is how it begins, something happens in the middle, and then it ends. But it is actually a circle because you want to take your protagonist from their comfort zone, get them out there to experience something, and that experience changes them as they come back to where they started. The good thing about the hero's journey is that it has kind of all these breakdowns. So I'll just run through the different parts of the hero's journey story structure. So it starts with the ordinary world. This is okay. This is where they are. Then the call of adventure. Something happens that has to get them out of their comfort zone. They refuse the call because, oh no, my life is okay, I don't want to move. And then they meet a mentor. This is someone that teaches them or kind of gives them that fire and shows them they have what it takes to achieve this thing. And then they cross the first threshold, where they get to meet their tests and allies and enemies. They meet friends, they learn stuff, and then they fight, and then they approach the innermost cave. This is something really scary, something really bad kind of happens, and then they think, oh my god, it's the worst. When they get into ordeal, the ordeal is like, I'm about to give up now, I'm almost done. And of course they get a reward, which is amazing. It's like, oh, I worked hard, I've been through this ordeal and I've gotten this reward, and then they head on the road back because, it's a circle. Through the road back, they have a resurrection, and one good example that comes to mind is The Matrix, the very first one. Neo gets shot, but then when he resurrects, he becomes the one, and that is when he returns with the elixir. I rushed through that, but honestly, the best structure is the 3-act structure. The good thing about the hero's journey is that it kind of gives you these steps if you want to expand your journey. And I know you might be thinking, well, my podcast is going to be talking to guests. You can still take the story structure and apply it to your guests. The beginning, how did they start this thing? The middle, what happened on their way to where they are now? And then they have to face something like some kind of crisis. And then, of course, the resolution. What did they learn from that crisis that they're applying now? So you might have podcast ideas, which, I hope you do now, but you can also have segments in your podcast. So today's 10 things are 10 podcast segment ideas. You can have a podcast plug where you give a shout out to another podcast. You can have listener voicemail where you have a listener send in messages and then you play. You can have Q&A, question and answer, tips and tricks, sponsor interviews. So if you have someone sponsoring your podcast, you can bring them to interview them, and that's actually marketing their stuff. Fun random facts, if you want to do that. Product review, guest interview, share story, and performance. I love performances. Whenever I have musicians on the Blackout podcast, I usually ask them to perform something, and it's always awesome. You know, we've talked about storying, we're getting down to how to make your podcast, and a part of you might be like, oh, I don't know, I don't really want to do this. Yeah, that fear is not actually a bad thing, it's a good thing. And I love this quote from Rosa Parks. I've learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, it diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. So you want to start a podcast, embrace that fear and go ahead and start it. This week's assignment, again, listen to a podcast episode. I think I'm always going to start with that. You have to immerse yourself in podcasting. Break it down using the hero's journey or any other structure you want to use. What do you like about that episode? Then share an episode idea for your own podcast. Break it down using the 3-story structure or any other story structure, and then create a list of possible titles for your podcast. You need to think about titles for your podcast. All right, can't wait to see you in the next video.